We'd gone for a walk. It was very cold. I must have been about 10, maybe 11. She sat on a bench, and I knew that something was wrong. She said, "Mummy's ill." And then she began to cough, and then blood started to come out of her mouth. I asked her if she was going to die. There was blood everywhere. The snow on the ground was turning red. Except, it wasn't blood. It was rose petals. Deep, dark red petals, smooth like velvet, smelling so sweet, the sweetest smell I ever smelled. I haven't seen my mother since.
It's been with us for a long time. It knows no boundaries. It spares no one. It's mysterious. It's romantic. It's deadly. This is its story. Hanahaki disease, the illness of flowers.
It's very simple. Patients complain that they're in love with someone who doesn't love them back, and shortly after they begin to cough up flower petals.
Dr. Guerrera is Professor of Immunology at Uxbridge University in the UK. She's currently the foremost expert on Hanahaki disease. She's here to help us uncover the secrets of Hanahaki, and to tell us about her struggle to conquer the illness of flowers.
A formal diagnosis of Hanahaki disease requires the presence of psychological symptoms of unrequited love and of three main physiopathological tangible criteria. First, floral expectoration, coughing up flowers, then some subtle anomalies of the B and T cells in the blood, and finally the presence of invasive cardiopulmonary nodules. The nodules look like a myriad tiny seeds scattered around the heart and lungs. In the imaging they look like diamond dust. In some strange, sinister way, this is a beautiful disease. The Japanese talk about mono no aware, the beauty of evanescent, transient things, such as cherry blossoms scattered by the wind.
Our story begins at the Tokyo Medical School in Japan. This is where Professor Aoi Yasuko and her team completed the first landmark study of Hanahaki and moved our understanding of the disease from the realm of poetry and mythology to the citadel of science.
We came from all over the world. I just finished my postdoc at Princeton Plainsboro, and they put me in charge of the organic tissue samples, the flowers. There was so much we didn't know, scientifically speaking. It was a very exciting time. Professor Oike was awe-inspiring. All that I've learned and done in this field, I owe it to her.
Hanahaki's reputation for having a strange, sinister beauty is due to its mysterious link with unrequited love. Hanahaki invariably begins with this kind of heartbreak. In the Japanese technical term, kato moi.
The link between kato moi, one-sided love, and Hanahaki is undeniable, but its mechanisms remain baffling. Only a small minority of kato moi sufferers developed Hanahaki. Importantly, someone may experience kato moi several times without consequences, only to develop Hanahaki abruptly. There's no discernible pattern.
There is only one 100% effective and safe cure for Hanahaki: being loved back, or falling out of love. Unfortunately, neither happens very often. The medical tools at our disposal are limited and flawed, but we don't have much of a choice. If we don't intervene, the prognosis is invariably fatal. The patient deteriorates, undergoes catastrophic system failure, and dies.
Standard treatment for Hanahaki disease involves surgical intervention to remove the cardiopulmonary nodules. The procedure is tricky since the nodules are tiny, diffuse, and very numerous. The surgical treatment of Hanahaki is notorious for the magnitude and impact of its adverse effects.
Quality of life is severely impacted. Patients present profound neurological impairment, flat or inappropriate affect, dissociation, personality changes, and possible paranoid ideation.
I'd kill it.
In common parlance, patients are referred to as lifeless robots because they never experience love or affection again, withdraw from normal social activities, and become bitter recluses. From the torment of unrequited love to the depth of an icy abyss.
I haven't seen my mother since.
Other approaches have been taken, but they come at a terrible price.
Good evening. Earlier today, Anna Karen Slutke and Oren Scrivello have been found guilty of medical malpractice and grievous bodily harm. They have been struck off the medical register and charged with manslaughter. The notorious medical duo had devised an unauthorized experiment on a group of Hanahaki patients. These patients were subjected to repeated blood transfusions, which tragically resulted in the death of 35 people.
But there's exciting news on the horizon. A group of scientists working for a prominent international military organisation have developed an innovative pilot protocol and started a clinical trial with a small group of volunteers.
Not once would I have imagined this could happen to me. I hated it. I hated him. I wished it would all go away. I tried to make it all go away. These things should be a matter of discipline. It didn't work, so I seek treatment. 3 days before my surgery, I was offered to take part in a pilot clinical trial. It will happen next Monday. I'm aware of the possible risks and of the side effects. I'm looking forward to them.
The procedure appears to treat Hanahaki successfully, is less invasive, and its side effects are much less devastating than the current ones.
No surgical intervention needed. Patients are put in an induced coma and given corticosteroid immunosuppressants. One of the most exciting aspects of our new protocol is that its adverse effects are different and much less disruptive. Patients do not become lifeless robots. They develop selective amnesia. They completely forget the object of their love and everything connected to them. It is as if their love object had never existed in first place.
While exciting, the procedure is counterintuitive. We don't know how and why it works. Clearly, more investigation is required. Nobody's forgotten the harrowing legacy of the bloody Slactari and Scrivello experiment.
We told them. We said, results are inconsistent. We need to stop. You have to give up. But they wouldn't listen. Patients' vitals became erratic. They grew so distressed. In the end, I called the police.
Scientists have tried a variety of treatments for Hanahaki, ranging from orthodox to criminal to daringly experimental. But we still don't know how and why these treatments work. Until now.
In the past 5 years, I've been working with my Oxbridge University team to understand the etiology of Hanahaki disease because we believed it would lead to a safe, effective cure for Hanahaki. We now think we have a breakthrough. It was detective work, really. We reviewed all extant treatments, the standard one, the new military clinical trials, and even the infamous Slactari and Scrivello experiment. We decided not to foreclose any venue of investigation. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has all the possible data.
But what was it that Dr. Guerrera and her team found?
My job was to analyze anomalies in the B cells and T cells of Hanahaki patients, and to review the StifledLaughter and Scorvello transfusion protocols. That wasn't easy reading. But we now found that blood is the key to the Hanahaki enigma. We know what Hanahaki is.
I've focused on the neuropsychological side effects of current Hanahaki treatments. We needed to know why so much of Hanahaki revolves around the mind and the brain. It cannot be a coincidence that both the trigger and the side effects of Hanahaki are neuropsychological in nature.
One of the most baffling characteristics of Hanahaki is its idiosyncratic nature. The onset of the disease is unpredictable, inconsistent, and apparently illogical. Katamoy is the trigger, but not always, and not for everyone.
So, what did Dr. Guerrera's team find out? What is it that sometimes makes people ill when they are heartbroken?
Je suis allergique aux imbéciles.
Anche io sono allergica agli imbecilli.
Allergisk mot idioter.
Sou alérgica aos machistas.
Έχω αλλεργία στους ηλίθιους.
We say that we are allergic to some people. What if this metaphor was literal?
We could only conclude that Hanahaki is an immune disease, an allergy.
Allergies are caused by substances called allergens or antigens. Allergens activate the immune system, but only in a percentage of the population. Some people develop allergies and some don't. In this perspective, the cardiopulmonary nodules would be the product of an allergic reaction, and Hanahaki, an immune disease.
But if Hanahaki is an allergy, what is the allergen that people react to?
It's complicated. Initially, we thought it might be the heartbreak of Katamoy, but the evidence pointed to the allergen being inbuilt, and Katamoy just the trigger that activates it. The pattern of Hanahaki development only makes logical sense if we think in terms of the combinations of different categories of patients and their love object. Some combinations lead to the development of Hanahaki, and some don't. So we are assuming the existence of an inbuilt Hanahaki-specific antigen and an inbuilt Hanahaki-specific antibody, whose job is to prevent the allergen from causing havoc. Both antigen and antibody can be present or absent in different people.
In the absence of a protective H antibody in the patient, and in the presence of the H antigen, the organism would develop an immune response leading to the growth and proliferation of cardiopulmonary nodules and the fatal exodus. In other words, the mechanism would be analogous to that of blood types. We realized it had to be something like that when we looked at the StifledLaughter and Scorvello experiment. They had in effect played Russian roulette, randomly transfusing people with potentially incompatible blood types. People who received blood containing the H antibody were cured. People who received extra H antigen died.
We may never know what StifledLaughter and Scorvello were thinking, and we don't quite care. Nothing will give us back what we lost. But knowing that Dr. Guerrera's team had cracked Hanahaki now, well, it makes it a little better. It's just not a senseless tragedy anymore.
And so, the horror of the StifledLaughter and Scorvello experiment has become part of the solution. But what of Katamoy?
Its presence is always a necessary prerequisite for Hanahaki, but Katamoy cannot be the allergen. We think that Katamoy is a hormone that catalyzes the immune reaction by switching on the H antigen. More specifically, Katamoy would need to be a pheromone to inform the patient's organism that their love is unrequited. It would act as a means of hormonal communication between the patient and their love object.
Dr. Guerrera and her team hypothesize that Hanahaki is an immune disease, an allergy resulting from the heartbreak hormone, kata-moe, switching on the patient's H antigen in their blood. If the immunological hypothesis is verified clinically, it would be hard to understate its impact on Hanahaki disease. And who knows what the future will bring.
The future looks very exciting. We're already working on the next phase of our project, where we will look at the future of clinical treatments. It's clear from our hypothesis that for a Hanahaki treatment to be effective, it must either intervene hematologically to block or eliminate the H allergen in the blood, or endocrinologically to suppress the heartbreak hormone kata-moe. We already have a long list of do's and don'ts.
We should adopt the military pilot protocol as soon as it is safe to do so. Their approach works because it suppresses kata-moe in a much less invasive and cruel way. By subjecting the patient to the trauma of ICU, the treatment causes amnesia. They forget everything about their love.
The Major's never been what you would call a calm person. Quite the opposite. But after his treatment, he changed. He's calmer now, but he's sadder too. He thinks nobody noticed, but we have.
It's obvious that our current surgical treatment should be discontinued as soon as possible. Its effectiveness doesn't lie in removing the nodules. We now know that they would just reform in the continued presence of the H allergen. Our current treatment works because its side effects eliminate the possibility of kata-moe by turning the patient into an emotionless husk.
I'm aware of the possible risks and of the side effects. I'm looking forward to them.
We must urgently develop a diagnostic test for blood H types. It's the indispensable prerequisite to cure Hanahaki in a simple, safe way by blood transfusions. Transfusing blood that we know for certain contains H antibodies would block the H antigens and stop the immune reaction.
It is sadly ironic that the horrific experiment by StifledLaughter and Scrivello has now become a relatively low-impact, cheap and safe treatment for Hanahaki. And there is more to come.
The future promises even better possibilities. The two optimal solutions would be to permanently suppress the kata-moe hormone by synthesizing effective blockers, or to permanently deactivate the H allergen via gene therapy using CRISPR technology.
We are an ambitious team. We're proud of what we achieved, and we look forward to achieving more. It's time to hope. It's time to heal our patients' suffering. It's time to end the illness of flowers.
Is it game over for Hanahaki? We may soon have a safe, simple cure. But how safe can the human heart be?
I didn't want medical treatment. I didn't care if I died. Of course, I can't remember that. Why I didn't want to forget who he was, what had happened, how I felt. But they saved my life. I suppose I should be grateful. But I'm not. I'm angry.
We now know that the range of possible cures will either work by suppressing the heartbreak hormone kata-moe or by switching off the H antigen. Suppressing kata-moe will remove the patient's feelings of love. Switching off the H antigen will not remove the patient's feelings of love, nor the heartbreak of their love being unrequited. Given a choice, patients will be able to decide whether to just forget about their love, or whether to keep carrying a torch in the hope that their love might one day become requited. Which one Would you choose?